Carrie Underwood, a country music superstar, had seen her fair share of interviews throughout her career. From her humble beginnings on American Idol to becoming one of the most recognized voices in music, she was no stranger to the media spotlight. She had dealt with tough questions before, but today felt different. She was set to appear on a popular liberal talk show that often leaned into political discussions, far from her usual conversations about music, family, or faith. As Carrie walked into the brightly lit studio, the energy was tense. The audience was buzzing, and the host, known for his aggressive interviewing style and controversial opinions, seemed to have something up his sleeve. He had made a name for himself by putting celebrities in uncomfortable situations, especially those who didn't share his views. Carrie knew that today might not just be another casual interview about her upcoming tour or latest album. She felt a slight unease creeping in. The host, smiling with a sharpness that hinted at more than just a friendly chat, greeted Carrie warmly on camera. But behind that smile, there was a glint in his eye, a sign that he had plans to steer the conversation toward topics that could potentially trip her up or create controversy. After all, controversy meant higher ratings. As Carrie sat down in the chair opposite him, the cameras rolled, and the audience watched closely. Everyone could sense that something big was about to happen. Carrie had been in the public eye for years, always maintaining her poise and grace. But would she be able to handle what was about to come? The host began the interview with a few light-hearted questions, easing into the conversation with small talk about Carrie's music and her success. But Carrie, always sharp and aware, could tell that this was just a calm before the storm. The audience, too, was waiting for the moment when things would shift. They knew the host's reputation, and they were expecting a dramatic turn. Carrie remained calm, answering the questions about her latest album and upcoming projects with the same warmth and humility she was known for. She didn't let the underlying tension faze her. However, she could feel the energy in the room begin to change. The host was building up to something bigger, something more personal. Finally, after what seemed like the perfect setup, the host dropped his first loaded question, a question that was clearly meant to provoke a reaction. It was about politics, an area Carrie typically avoided discussing in interviews. He wanted to know her stance on a controversial issue, one that had been making headlines and dividing the country. Carrie took a deep breath. She knew this moment was coming, but she wasn't going to let him dictate the conversation. She was here to talk about her music, her passion, and her journey, not to be drawn into a political debate. But the host wasn't going to let it go that easily. The tension in the room thickened as the host pressed her for an answer, trying to corner her into saying something that could make headlines the next day. The audience leaned forward in their seats, eager to see how Carrie would respond. Would she take the bait, or would she find a way to steer the conversation back to safer ground? Carrie knew she had to be careful. One wrong word, one misstep, and the headlines could twist her words into something she never intended. But Carrie wasn't about to let anyone put her in a box. She had dealt with difficult situations before, and this was no different. With a calm, steady voice, she began to respond, but the host wasn't finished. He interrupted her, his tone growing sharper. The audience gasped, feeling the tension between the two. This was no longer just a light-hearted interview. It had turned into a battle of wills, and the host was determined to get the upper hand. But Carrie was about to show everyone that she was not someone to be underestimated. As the host's questions became more pointed, his true intentions were becoming clear. He wasn't just interested in Carrie's thoughts on music or her personal life. He wanted to make her uncomfortable. He wanted to challenge her, push her into a corner, and maybe even humiliate her on national television. After all, it would make for great headlines, and he thrived on controversy. The host shifted the conversation again, this time diving into a topic he knew would stir the pot: Carrie's faith. He brought it up in a condescending way, implying that her beliefs were outdated or irrelevant in today's world. His tone suggested that he didn't think someone as successful as Carrie could still hold onto such traditional values. The audience watched closely, waiting for Carrie's reaction. Carrie, however, remained composed. She had faced criticism about her faith before, and she wasn't about to let this host get the better of her. She knew that faith was a deeply personal matter, something that guided her throughout her life and career. It wasn't something she felt the need to defend, especially not to someone who was clearly looking to start an argument. But the host didn't stop there. He continued to poke and prod, asking Carrie if she felt her beliefs made her out of touch with the modern world, or if she ever felt pressured to abandon them for the sake of her career. It was clear that he was trying to make her seem small, as if her faith was a flaw or something to be ashamed of. The audience shifted in their seats, some clearly uncomfortable with the direction the conversation had taken. But others, the host fans, were eating it up. They loved seeing him take celebrities down a peg, and they were waiting for Carrie to slip up. It was as if the entire room was holding its breath, waiting for her to say the wrong thing. But Carrie wasn't going to give them the satisfaction. With a calm and steady voice, she addressed the host's questions, not rising to his bait, but also not backing down. She spoke about how her faith had always been a source of strength for her, especially in a world as unpredictable as the music industry. She wasn't ashamed of her beliefs, and she wasn't going to let anyone make her feel that way. Still, the host pushed. He began to mock her, subtly at first, but then more openly. He made jokes about people who cling to their faith in a world that had supposedly moved on. The audience laughed, but it was a nervous laugh, unsure of where this was going. Would Carrie respond in anger? Would she try to defend herself? Carrie looked directly at the host, her eyes steady. The room was silent, everyone waiting for her next move. Carrie Underwood wasn't just a country music star. She was a woman of conviction. As the host continued with his mocking tone, Carrie could feel the frustration building up. She had tolerated the jabs, the condescending questions, and the attempts to provoke her, but enough was enough. She had spent years building a career based on authenticity, kindness, and unwavering belief in what mattered to her, and she wasn't about to let anyone, especially a talk show host, make her feel less than that. She paused for a moment, collecting her thoughts. The audience, sensing the change in the air, grew quiet. It was clear that Carrie wasn't just going to sit back and take it anymore. She had built a reputation for being polite and gracious. But today, something inside her had shifted. The host may have thought he could humiliate her, but he had underestimated the strength of Carrie Underwood's resolve. With a deep breath, Carrie leaned forward slightly, her gaze never leaving the host. The room was still, the audience sensing that the atmosphere had just changed. She didn't raise her voice, but there was an undeniable fire in her tone that commanded attention. "You know," Carrie began, her voice calm but firm, "I've never understood why people feel the need to tear down others for believing in something that brings them peace. I didn't get to where I am by abandoning my values or pretending to be something I'm not. My faith, my family, and my values are a huge part of who I am, and I'm proud of that." The host, who had clearly been hoping for a different response, was caught off guard by Carrie's calm but powerful words. The audience, many of whom had been unsure of how this interview would unfold, now found themselves on the edge of their seats, waiting for the next line. Carrie's response wasn't just a defense. It was a statement, a declaration of who she was and what she stood for. But Carrie didn't stop there. She could tell that the host was still skeptical, perhaps even trying to come up with another way to discredit her. So, she took a moment to look directly into the camera. Her eyes were sharp, her voice unwavering, and there was a quiet strength in her presence that seemed to fill the room. "I'm not here to convince you or anyone else about what I believe," she continued, her tone steady. "But what I do know is this: we all have a right to our beliefs. And just because mine may not align with yours doesn't mean I'm out of touch or stuck in the past. It means I'm being true to myself, and I'm not ashamed of it." The room was electric. The audience, which had been uncertain just moments before, erupted into applause. It wasn't just because of Carrie's response. It was because they had witnessed something rare. They had seen a celebrity, a public figure, stand her ground with dignity, grace, and power. The host was speechless for a moment, as if he hadn't expected this kind of pushback. The tension in the room was palpable. Carrie's words had struck a chord not just with the audience, but with the host himself. For a brief moment, it seemed like he didn't know how to respond. The smug smile that had once played on his lips faded, replaced by a look of surprise. He had expected to humiliate her, to make her stumble, but instead, he had just been schooled on the power of standing firm in one's beliefs. Carrie, seeing the shift, didn't let up. She knew that this was her moment, the moment that would define not just this interview, but her own narrative. She was tired of being painted into a corner by people who thought they knew better, who thought they could use her celebrity status to push their own agendas. This was her time to reclaim her voice and show the world exactly who she was. With the audience's support ringing in her ears, Carrie took a deep breath and continued. "I've always tried to use my platform for good," she said, her voice growing stronger with every word. "I've worked with charities, supported causes that matter to me, and tried to be a positive influence in the world. That's not something I'm going to apologize for. And if you think that means I'm out of touch, then maybe it's time we all take a good look at what being in touch really means." The applause grew louder. The audience was fully behind her now, rallying around Carrie's unapologetic defense of her faith, her values, and her authenticity. The host, still reeling from her response, tried to recover, but it was clear that the momentum had shifted in Carrie's favor. He stammered, attempting to steer the conversation back to safer ground, but Carrie wasn't having it. She wasn't there to be boxed in, to be used for someone's ratings boost. She had a message, and she was going to make sure it was heard. "I'm not here to fight with you," she said, her voice steady but firm. "But I will not sit here and let you mock me or anyone else for being true to who they are. We all have our stories, our journeys, and our struggles. And I'm proud of mine." The room was filled with applause once again, this time even louder than before. Carrie Underwood had just done something extraordinary. She hadn't just answered questions. She had stood up for herself, for her beliefs, and for the millions of people who had been watching and silently rooting for her to speak up. As the interview came to a close, the host tried to regain his composure. He gave Carrie a forced smile and thanked her for joining the show, but it was clear that the dynamic had shifted. Carrie had not only handled the difficult questions with grace, but she had also delivered a response that would go down in talk show history as one of the most epic clapbacks ever seen on live television. When the cameras stopped rolling, the backstage area buzzed with energy. The production team, the crew, and even the host staff couldn't help but talk about what had just happened. No one had expected Carrie to turn the tables like that. It was a moment that would become legendary, one that would be discussed for days to come. As Carrie made her way out of the studio, she felt a sense of relief wash over her. She had stood her ground, not just for herself, but for everyone who had ever been judged or mocked for their beliefs. She knew she had just made a statement that would resonate long after the interview was over. In the days that followed, the internet exploded with clips of the interview. Social media was flooded with praise for Carrie's bold and powerful response. Hashtags like #CarrieClapback and #EpicCarrieMoment trended worldwide. People from all walks of life shared the video, discussing how Carrie had handled the interview with such poise and strength. Even those who didn't agree with her beliefs couldn't help but admire her courage. Carrie Underwood's Clapback had become a viral sensation, a testament to the power of standing up for what you believe in, no matter the cost. It was a reminder that, sometimes, the best way to handle criticism and mockery is not with anger, but with confidence, grace, and an unwavering commitment to being true to yourself. The aftermath of the interview was nothing short of spectacular. Carrie Underwood's Clapback had ignited a firestorm across social media, news outlets, and TV broadcasts. The segment, which many had once considered a typical celebrity interview, was now being dubbed as the moment that changed the game for public figures everywhere. What had started as an attempt to humiliate Carrie had turned into a monumental display of strength and character, one that captivated millions. People from all walks of life, fans, critics, and even other celebrities began to weigh in. It was clear that the world was watching. Carrie had done what many people only dream of doing. She had stood her ground against an attempt to belittle her, and in doing so, she had made an indelible mark in the hearts of millions. One tweet from a well-known actor went viral. Carrie Underwood just reminded all of us that you don't need to back down when someone tries to put you in a corner. Stand tall, be true, and always clap back with grace. The tweet garnered tens of thousands of likes and retweets, and soon, more public figures were expressing their admiration for Carrie's response. Even the most skeptical critics couldn't deny that Carrie had won this round. They didn't agree with her views, but they respected her courage and unapologetic defense of her beliefs. As the interviews, tweets, and posts continued to flood in, it became increasingly clear that Carrie had not only taken control of the situation, but had also reshaped the narrative. At the heart of this viral moment was the undeniable message that Carrie had sent. Authenticity matters. She had not been afraid to show the world exactly who she was, her values, her beliefs, and her commitment to staying true to herself. And it wasn't just her fans who took notice. Even those who had once mocked or disagreed with her felt a sense of admiration for the way she handled the situation. While the interview had been uncomfortable at times, it also opened up a larger conversation about respect, the power of standing up for oneself, and the importance of remaining authentic in an ever-changing world. It wasn't just about country music or celebrity culture. It was a universal lesson for everyone. Carrie's post-interview social media activity was also met with a huge response. She posted a simple message on her Instagram account. "Thank you all for the love and support. I'm just here to be myself, and I'm grateful for everyone who stands with me." The post quickly amassed over 1 million likes, and the comment section was filled with messages of support and admiration. People from around the globe thanked her for being the voice of reason and for showing that it's okay to hold your ground when others try to tear you down. But there was also something else happening behind the scenes. Carrie was receiving messages from people who had faced similar challenges, people who had been made to feel small or insignificant because of their beliefs. Many shared their personal stories with her, expressing gratitude for her powerful response. For them, Carrie's Clapback wasn't just a viral moment. It was a moment of validation, a reminder that they too could stand up for themselves, even when others tried to push them down. Carrie Underwood's bold response during that live interview would be remembered for more than just its entertainment value. It would become a symbol of empowerment for people everywhere. In the weeks following the incident, the effects rippled outward, impacting not only the world of celebrity culture, but also larger societal conversations about freedom of speech, the importance of authenticity, and the power of standing up to criticism. It wasn't just Carrie's fans who took note. The entertainment industry, usually quick to jump on the latest viral trend, also recognized the significance of what had unfolded. Executives, producers, and other high-profile figures began to speak out about how Carrie had handled herself. Some even said that her response had set a new standard for how celebrities should handle difficult interviews and public challenges. For many, it wasn't just about Carrie's individual moment of victory. It was about what her actions represented. It was about the idea that people, especially those in the public eye, should not be afraid to speak their truth, even when it might not align with the status quo. It was a reminder that strength comes from within, and true courage lies in staying true to who you are. Even in the political realm, people were discussing Carrie's actions. She had become a figure of resilience, someone who had weathered the storm of public scrutiny and come out stronger on the other side. It was a testament to her character and the way she had handled herself throughout the entire ordeal. It wasn't just her music or her celebrity that had garnered respect. It was her unwavering resolve to be herself. Carrie's story began to inspire people from all walks of life. Students who had been bullied at school, employees who had been mistreated at work, and everyday people who faced judgment for their beliefs all took to social media, sharing their own stories and expressing how Carrie's response had empowered them. The hashtag Carrie Clapback turned into something far greater than just a viral trend. It became a symbol of personal strength and resilience. But perhaps the most surprising impact of all was the way it influenced Carrie herself. The moment she had faced on that talk show had been difficult, but it had forced her to confront something she had long known deep down. that she didn't have to conform to anyone else's expectations. She didn't need to explain herself, nor did she need to apologize for being true to her values. The incident had reminded her of the power of authenticity, and she knew she was better for it. Carrie began to focus even more on her personal values. She used her platform to speak out about causes she cared deeply about, and her message resonated with millions. People began to see her not just as a country music star, but as a voice for truth and integrity in a world that sometimes seemed determined to tear people down for being different. As for the host of the talk show, the fallout was less pleasant. The interview, which had initially been seen as a light-hearted exchange, had now taken on a much larger significance. Viewers began to criticize the host for his line of questioning, accusing him of trying to belittle Carrie for her beliefs. It was clear that the moment had backfired, and the host was left scrambling to defend himself against the backlash. Carrie, however, remained unbothered. She had made her statement, and the world had heard it. The rest, as far as she was concerned, didn't matter. As the months passed, Carrie Underwood's epic Clapback continued to be a focal point of discussion. It wasn't just a viral moment. It had become part of her legacy. The interview and the response that followed had cemented Carrie as someone who wasn't just a country music icon, but a woman who had the strength to stand up for herself, her beliefs, and her values. Her story became a symbol of empowerment, a reminder to always be unapologetically yourself, no matter the obstacles or criticism that may come your way. In a world where the pressure to conform is ever present, Carrie Underwood's refusal to back down had given people a blueprint for how to handle adversity with grace and dignity. As she continued to build her career and her legacy, Carrie made it clear that she was more than just a voice in country music. She was a voice for authenticity, for standing up against injustice, and for never being afraid to speak your truth. The viral moment, the applause, and the praise were all part of her journey, but what mattered most to Carrie was the impact she had made on others. She knew that her response had inspired countless individuals to stand tall in the face of adversity, and that was worth more than any amount of fame or fortune. And so, Carrie Underwood's story became one of triumph, not just for herself, but for everyone who had ever been told to quiet their voice or hide who they were. Her epic Clapback was more than just a viral moment. It was a legacy of strength, courage, and the unwavering belief that you should never, ever apologize for being yourself.